Oh my god. That's not, no. Camera, no. Back it up. Hey, what's up? I'm Allie, and welcome back to my channel. So, about 2 months ago now, I decided to start my unhaul project, which is basically where I draw a random prompt and then I have to read from my own shelves and give myself a time limit. I pull a few different titles for whatever that prompt is, and I have to read them in that time limit, or I have to unhaul them. And this is my first one, and let me tell you, it was something. I ended up pulling books that were the oldest on my shelves, and I made a little TBR video to hold myself accountable, and then I lost track of time because in the past, normally what I do is I have a TBR and I don't do the video until I finish reading the books, and I kind of forgot that I wasn't doing that this time. There was a time limit. So I'll remember next time because I messed up this time. So there is that. In this journey, I did decide to end up save one book, and I do think from now on this challenge will include me. I will get to save one book and one book only. I ended up pulling the oldest ones from my shelves. I was mostly doing this by memory, and then I actually went back and realized that a lot of these were actually mentioned in one of my very first ever hauls on YouTube. So it ended up working out. So I ended up pulling are definitely ones that I don't think I would have bought today. They're hyped back in the day, or they were something that I thought I should have been reading. So that TBR included Moonglow, which is one that a friend had recommended it to me, and this was at a period in my life when I thought I read nothing but literary fiction. And then also the Nirvana Threads. Now this was sent to me in a book box. We also had Gap, which was a big book on YouTube back in the day on BookTube. BookTube hyped it up, so I had bought that in the hype and hadn't read it because honestly at the time it didn't really seem like something that would interest me. The Lux series, so the very first one is Lux Beginnings, I believe. Also have the Wind Up Bird Chronicles, and then we had Pride and Prejudice, which is a classic that I felt like I should have been reading because I was an English major and had bought, and ended up being Doll Baby. So that was the TBR. Let's see how it went. Moonglow is a kind of historical fiction. It is about a man whose grandfather is dying, and so he decides to write the life story of his grandfather, especially because his grandfather didn't talk about himself a lot. But now his grandfather is opening up on his deathbed about his life, and this is just basically his account of his life. Welcome to the first day of the unhaul vlog. I decided that the first book I'm going to read is the Moonglow. Because I had a friend, who keeps asking me to read it. And it is one of the longer ones, so I figure if I kind of get it out of the way, that will leave more time for the others. And because I had so much literary fiction that was kind of mixed in, I figure I'll start with that, have a more fun one, then more literary fiction, another fun one, and then more literary fiction if needed. So that's what we're going to start with today. I also have all day, basically, to listen to it. It is, I believe, 14-hour audiobook. I'm going to listen to that today because I'm going to be doing a lot of housework. I'm going to be painting, and today I'm actually going to be painting our RV. So you might get some sneak peeks at our RV renovation that's happening, and then there's just a few other house things that I gotta get done. So I'm going to listen to that today and see how far I can get. Anyway, hey, hi, hello. Welcome to my sweaty RV vlog. Don't look, you can't look. You don't have to look. But I am just gonna show you. I've been priming, there's a bathroom back there. So I've been priming this stuff. But today I'm going to work on the backsplash area here. You're crooked because this whole thing is crooked. We're on a hill. So I've only listened to 2 hours of this audiobook, and I'm not loving it. I honestly am not really sure what the point of it is. We're learning about, like, his grandfather's life. Like, these are not anything that I would care about. It's like it feels very transphobic as well. But just like his first experience with a woman was a bearded lady, and then there's a lot of weird sexual undertones for something being about his grandfather. Try one more hour. Currently.
Most was relief. 6 months later, he would be dead. The next morning, well before dawn, I ran.
Okay, we are moving on to the bathroom. A lot of this, like, the shower is staying because look, marvelous, beautiful, fantastic. But there's a lot of, like, gold accents in here that are kind of worn and rusted looking. Like, just kind of gross looking. So, I have taped up some bags that I had. And what I'm going to do, because these aren't like easy to take off, you'd have to like rip them off and then put them back on with some sort of adhesive. So instead, I've taped them off and I'm just going to spray paint them on the wall and see how this goes. Wish me luck. I have an update. It's been 2 weeks. 2 fucking weeks doing this. And I've DNF'd 2 books now. Okay, let's do an update with Moonglow. I really wanted to read this one because, as I said, I had a friend who read it, really enjoyed it. I really loved Mysteries of Pittsburgh. It's one of my favorite books. I normally like this author's writing, and this just... I'm just bored out of my mind with this book. It is more about a war. It is literally a guy telling the life story of his grandfather. However, we kind of jump all over the place. Like, the timeline's a bit weird. Sometimes we're talking about, like, near the end of his life, and sometimes we're talking about when he was a young boy, and sometimes we're talking about in the middle when he's in the war. And I'm having a hard time. Like, I don't know these people. I don't care about these people, and it's so all over the place. I'm more interested in the grandmother, and we barely get any glimpses into her. Like, she's mentioned, like, how awesome and kick-ass she is, like, one time, and then we've moved along. And at first I was like, maybe I'm just not giving it an equal shot, because, I mean, I love learning about the lives of, like, fictional people who are supposed to be important. So, like, Evelyn Hugo, and also City of Girls does it, and it's like, I normally like those, but I think I just don't like crusty white old men. I literally do not care. I was listening to it out in the garden, and I didn't have my earbuds in. I was just listening to it out loud, and it talked about, it described a scene of premature ejaculation, and I'm like, now is the time when everyone walks by my house. I have read halfway through it, and I just literally do not care. Like, there were parts where I realized I wasn't even paying attention, and it didn't matter. Like, I had no interest in going back and rereading it. So, I'm really upset, because at this point, like, I really wanted to enjoy this. I wanted to message my friend and be like, I finally did it! But I can't in good consciousness do that, because I don't care. I mean, I read like 200 and some pages of this book. Like, even more. And I don't know. I don't know what the point is. So then, because I was like, maybe I'm just not in the mood for that, I did decide to take a break while I was reading that, and I picked up their Nirvana Threads. Now this was in, I think, a book box that I got. I don't remember which one. I want to say it was maybe the Unplugged books box, but I don't quote me on that. And I was like, okay, like this seems interesting. I enjoy the cover. It's, you know, like indie published. It says it has a graphic novel in it. It's a magical and punk romance, or a spiritual and punk romance. I'm like, I'll give it a try. You know, that's fine. I got 20 pages in and I just already knew that this book wasn't going to be for me. It's not, I mean, the premise in and of itself, anything that's kind of spiritual, I don't really care about. But basically, it's a woman, her and her husband are in a car accident together, and they're like, I believe, trying to be in the car accident. Like, they're both planning to die. The problem is that she wakes up in the hospital alive, and he is dead, and she's just like, doesn't understand how this has gone so wrong. So she goes back home to live with her parents, even though her parents don't really care, and she's there with her brother, and there's this guy that gives me the absolute creeps, and I'm pretty sure that's who she ends up having the romance with. But meanwhile, she starts seeing these weird, like, orb type things, like leaving people's bodies and like anyway, they're like waving around outside these people's bodies, and I don't know, I just don't care. And then I realized the graphic novel is part of this story. I don't really understand, to be honest, and I don't really want to know, so I'm gonna get rid of it. I don't think this story is for me. The writing's not bad, it's just not a story for me, to be honest. I don't care. I think she ends up using this ability that she can see these things to write the graphic novel, but again, I'm not really sure why. Bonecamp takes place in a bit of a strange town, following some quirky characters, and this is about a girl who kind of showed up, everyone loved her, and then she goes missing. We've DNF'd 2 books, and that leads me to the 3rd book we're on, which is Bone Gap. I started this on a whim. I'm already halfway through it. I don't know what I was expecting, but this is really fucking good. At least so far. It's giving me, like, old school John Green in a bit of the descriptions, and like they're young adults and like way too philosophical, and there's a girl who's kind of like quirky and weird type deal. But it's also giving me Sadie vibes, because one character, this girl has gone missing from this town, and like no one really believes that she's gone missing. And our main character, he's like, no, I know she went missing, and like I have to go find her type deal. Like, no one believes me, but I know someone stole her. And so we're also getting the point of view from her, though. So it feels a little bit like that. But then it also, the writing style sometimes reminds me of like the Raven cycle, because some of the descriptions are just so off the wall, and I love it. So this is a mystery kind of suspense story. I am halfway through it. I feel like I can finish it pretty soon, because like I've just been thinking about wanting to get back into the story, so I'm probably gonna finish it. And yeah, this might be the only hit. Lux is a paranormal romance about a girl in high school who moves to a new neighborhood and finds out that her neighbors just might be aliens. Did I mention it's a super hot neighbors, by the way, because that's, you know, a given. Let's do an update on the unhaul challenge. Lux. I decided let's pick up Lux. It seems fairly straightforward, you know. It's a paranormal YA romance. This did come out over 10 years ago, I believe, so no high expectations going into this, to be honest. However, this was a really well-loved series back in the day, so I'm like, okay, what was the hype about? What was going on there? Why was this so hyped? And I can tell you, I started listening to it. It doesn't take very long to get through it, because it's not like super, it's romance heavy. This is a very romance heavy book, and it's all about the ships, you know, just all about who you're shipping with who in this. And we got an arrogant boy next door who is also mysterious. And then we got her, and she's like, you know, she thinks she's bland and whatever, but she's actually beautiful all of a sudden. Anyway, you know, typical YA stuff. So, getting into this, I was actually surprised. I am pretty familiar with the areas of which this book takes place. Mostly takes place in the mountains of West Virginia, and there is a reason for that. Now, right off the bat, there are some like cringy moments. I will say the writing in and of itself is like, hasn't aged particularly well because it's not like super politically correct all the time. There is some talk of indigenous landmarks and history in this, and I don't know how that stands in this book. I would have to find some own voices and see if the representation is okay. It is kind of just talking about it in passing, but it does play a role within this. But I do have to say, you know, cross the line when we start making fun of Mothman. Just crossing the line there. Mothman is my boyfriend, okay? So my favorite cryptid of all the cryptids. So they did talk about first of all, they say he's a flying dragonfly, and I'm like, moth is in the name. But I do have to draw the line at Mothman. No. Like I said, there's some parts in this where the wording is definitely caught my eye as not like the most appropriate phrasing or the most stellar writing of all time. But if I would have been reading this 10 years ago, I don't know if I would have blinked twice at any of it. So definitely can tell that it was written 10 years ago. The story itself is a bit over the top, and it's a bit silly, and it feels a bit like Twilight at times. Can I just say I flew through the first part because it is like you're just mostly going through it. There's some action, there's like some bad guys out to kill them, and there's like the romance. Here's the thing, I only care about the romance at this point, and I was halfway through this and I'm like, I'm gonna update everyone real quick, and I'm gonna be like, this is like maybe a 3-star book. I can get rid of it and the other ones that I have because I'm not going to continue this series. I finished Obsidian and immediately started Onyx. And I'm already through the second one. I get it now. It's addictive. It's something about it. It's straight serotonin. Jennifer L. Armentrout knows where to put things to keep your interest because, I mean, the plot is kind of interesting. Like, there's some bad guys on the loose and they're out to kill them and stuff. And like, yeah, that's kind of scary. But also she knows all the right places to put the romantic tension. I will say this feels very much like a romance written back then because we got the like, oh, they're so drawn to each other and then they're gonna deny all attraction. Oh, they're so drawn to each other and then we're gonna yell at each other for a while. And it's like very much that. It reminds me a bit of like reading Cassandra Clare, the first like Mortal Instruments and stuff like way back in the day. So it's got a little bit of that. Like it definitely feels that way, but I tell you what, it's still fun as heck to read. So yeah, I'm almost done the second one already. I will say I've mostly been kind of skimming isn't quite the appropriate word because I am reading, but I'm not fully reading everything all the time in the second one because there are parts that I know that I don't care about and I am getting the general gist of it. I don't know after I finish the second one if I'll keep going or not. What is happening? What is happening? I guess I'm keeping it. I like was fully going into this thinking this was going to be the book I'm getting rid of, and it's the one I'm keeping. Damn. The Wind Up Bird Chronicles is about I believe a cat that goes missing, and then as the man is looking for the cat, his wife also goes missing, and something along the lines of that. Every time I do one of these, I'm going to get to keep one book, and all the others, like there will be one that I can skip for the challenge, and I do think that's going to be the Wind Up Bird Chronicle for me. I don't think I'm going to be in the right headspace to read this anytime soon. It's a literary fiction. Honestly, it is one book that I don't care if it just sits on my shelf because I think it's beautiful and I do think eventually I will get to it, but this just isn't something that I have the time or energy for. So this is going to be the one that I get to save this round. That one can also go back onto my shelves to live another day, and then maybe once I have a few, we'll come back to those. This is a romantic classic where we have Elizabeth who comes across Mr. Darcy, and their first meeting does not go well, and it is about how they keep running into each other, basically, and kind of falling in love. I feel like it's been a while since I updated you. Well, obviously, I have a whole new fucking hair color. But that's because it feels like it's taking me a whole long time to finish Pride and Prejudice. Like, I'm bored out of my mind. Halfway through it, and I'm so bored. First of all, halfway through it, where is Mr. Darcy? I thought this was a book about Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy. Where is the man? He's MIA. We've seen him once. He's not very impressionable. He said Elizabeth is ugly and left. There's also a lot of people to keep track of. What is up with this white balance? Can I change this white balance? Okay, I think that might be a little bit better. And I do think after about 100 pages, I kind of knew who was who and who was doing what. And honestly, like, I thought I was going to be confused by, like, societal rules and what's going on. But I think I'm actually more shocked that it's more lenient than what I was expecting. Just because the things that I've read have been, like, demon hunter fiction. Probably not the best historical source of all time of how society was then. So I think that has been the biggest thing. And like, I still want to know what's going to happen because at this point, neither of them seems to like each other. So I'm just kind of confused. Is this a true hate to romance? Because like right now I'm feeling nothing. But like, they don't like each other. I don't really understand why, other than like Mr. Darcy's kind of like, I don't know, thinks his shit don't stink or something. I don't know. So right now I'm just like, who gives a fuck about what any of y'all are doing? Where is Mr. Darcy? Where is the romance in this romance? Anyway, I started playing Fortnite yesterday. So, that's probably what I'm gonna do for the rest of my day. Actually, no, I'm gonna play Lost Ark and try to finish listening to this damn book. Maybe it's historical fiction about a woman who goes to her grandmother's to live and is taken in by her grandmother's black cook and daughter. So by the time that we got to Doll Baby 1, I had too much time had passed and I totally forgot that I was supposed to be on a time limit for this. And also, I had originally thought this was a war book. I figured it was historical fiction. I hadn't realized what exactly this book was about, and so upon reading the synopsis, it sounds like it might be a bit of possibly a white savior story. I don't know, I didn't read the reviews, but it doesn't matter. I don't think this is really a story that I would be interested in today anyway. I love the cover. I think this is lovely, but I don't read a lot of historical fiction anymore these days that doesn't have some sort of horror element mixed in. And well, this could be horror in of itself. Anyway, that isn't just strictly listed as horror. I don't think this is something that I'm really interested in or want to read anymore anyway. Maybe at one point, yes, this could have been something I saw myself reading, but this just isn't it. So I think that's why I was putting it off for so long as well, because I knew that I probably wasn't going to find it that enjoyable. So is this the holdup of this whole video? It sure is. It sure is. And now it's time for it to be unhauled. So with that, the conclusion is that I am keeping Bone Gap, which is probably a new favorite and one that I've been recommending, and I can't believe that I put it off, especially considering how hyped it was. And I think this is very much for fans of the Raven Cycle series. It was so good. And then I am also keeping Lux because I'm addicted to this. I actually did contemplate whether or not I was still going to hold on to this series or not. I do think I could probably put this in the shelf that I have that are like cheesy favorites, that are ones that like at some point were really important to the YA genre and its growth, and I feel like this could fall into that category. I thought it was a fun time. I do think I will probably be unhauling the rest of the series though. I was fine with the first two. I don't feel the need to read like 6 more, so I'll just read the wiki pages. And I'm also keeping Pride and Prejudice, despite the fact I'm not really enjoying it that much. I do love these covers that I have, and I think it is just good to have some classics on the shelves. Just why not? As a collector and as someone who has a whole ass degree in literature, it just feels right. So I am going to hold on to this. Don't think I'll be getting any other super special editions, though, in the meantime. Now, the book that I ended up saving was the Wind-Up Bird Chronicle, just because I do think that this is a book that I will enjoy at some point in my life, just not right now. So we are holding on to this for one more round. We'll see if I eventually get to it. However, mean that we have the losers. So, of this group, I will be unhauling Moonglow, to my friend's greatest dismay, but this book was just boring as hell. I'm also getting rid of the Nirvana Threads in hopes that someone else will click with this book, because I just really don't think I have the time for this. Despite how short it is, I just really did not think that we were connecting. And then Doll Baby, which I put off for so long, it is the loser to this event. Also, this is interesting. I managed to unhaul the hardbacks and keep all the paperbacks. Oh, I'm gonna have to change my channel name. That is it for my first unhaul challenge. I think it was quite the success. I managed to get a good amount of books off of my own TBR. I mean, good amount. Like, that's barely anything, let's be honest. I feel pretty good about it, and I will be doing another one very soon. So we'll have to see what my next challenge involves and how quickly I can get it done. I hope you liked this video. Don't forget to subscribe to see future videos from me. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!